Good evening and welcome to our Monday, April 27th school board meeting. If you would all rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for being here tonight. Down at number 5 on our agenda is our public input, and if you would like to speak before the board tonight, if you would fill one of those cards out, it allows you 3 minutes on the topic of whatever your topic is, and if you would bring them up and give them to Ms. Challenger on the end, then you will be heard at that time. If I don't get them by the time we start, we don't take them afterwards. Thank you very much. Dr. Moxley.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our school board meeting. Thank you for being here tonight. We have several items on our agenda, and first, it gives me pleasure to welcome back to our student representative from Tavares High School, Savannah Gunther. Savannah is a senior at Tavares High School, and we were delighted to have her with us at our last board meeting and to hear her report from Tavares High School and all the wonderful things that are going on. We know that here at the end of April that seniors are very busy, and they have lots of activities, and they're preparing for graduation, so I look forward to hearing Savannah's report later on our agenda. Also, it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you.
If you have a cell phone, would you please put it on vibrate or turn it off? Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce to you one of our Teacher of the Year finalists, Melissa Meadows from Treadway Elementary School, who has also joined us on the dais this evening. Melissa Meadows began teaching 7 years ago. She teaches second grade inclusion at Treadway Elementary School with 15 students. Most of her students at Treadway Elementary have been working on many areas and have really excelled in overcoming several reading deficiencies that she has been working with them with very diligently. She's helped them make significant gains academically and behaviorally through the programs she offers in her classroom. Ms. Meadows enjoys watching the light bulb go on in each of her students as they obtain proficiency in different skill areas, and she continues to be amazed at their performance levels and how they've increased. Ms. Meadows has organized workshops that focus on courses for exceptional student education and technology. She has played a large role in the incorporation of the new standards in second grade mathematics, and she won first place award at the Jim Harbin Film Festival for the 2014 Public Service Video Bullying Shout It Out. And so it's just a wonderful honor for us to have you join us tonight, and we look forward to your report also later in our agenda this evening. Moving right along, district highlights. I have several that I'd like to highlight. We have some exciting news with great things that are happening around our district. For starters, I had a very special pleasure of being part of our annual Top Scholars Luncheon last week. This is a salute to some of the most academically talented students in our district. These students were recognized as being in the top 3% of the graduating class from each of our high schools. I enjoyed meeting these students, getting to know their families, and the strong support that they have received to excel and reach the performance levels that they have done. They're going to move on to college and do great things, and it was very interesting to hear the different career majors and the college and universities and the career plans as they excel. So congratulations to all our seniors that will be graduating on May 29th, and I do have a schedule for you, board members. I also want to congratulate Lillian Lopez, our newly named School-Related Employee of the Year, and Margie White, our Volunteer of the Year. Both were recently honored last week at our Night of Stars event sponsored by the Education Foundation of Lake County. Ms. Lopez works as a homeless resource advocate with our federal compensatory education program, better known as Title I. And Ms. White has volunteered at Eustis Elementary School for 26 years. We're very proud of both these fine individuals and fortunate to have them here in Lake County Schools. And lastly, I'd like to recognize 3 of our Tavares High School students who are art students who placed in the 2015 Congressional Art Competition last week. This is a national high school visual art competition that recognizes and encourages artistic talent across the nation in each congressional district. The winning students from Tavares High are Brittany Nesmith, first place, James Worley, second place, and Maria Villalobos, third place. Their winning photography will hang in the Congressman Daniel Webster's local office for the next year, and we are thrilled to highlight their work and see them recognized in the area of fine arts. So I really want to thank all our participants. I'd like to thank our principals, our students, our teachers, our district staff for what you do each and every day to give our students a very well-rounded educational program. With regards to operations, we had an exit conference by the Tampa office USDA staff looking at our food services department, and they achieved a perfect review for their operations at the prominently high free and reduced lunch schools that were inspected by this group. We will receive their final report in 30 days. But I'm very excited about the exit conference that we did receive, and I really want to congratulate our food service staff and our food service department under the leadership of Gary Dodds. So those are just a few highlights tonight.
Okay. Changes, amendments, additions, or deletions?
Yes, board members, I just want to highlight that agenda item 9.08 does have a title change and some changes to the job description as a result of the workshop that we had last week and the clarification provided to you this afternoon. So that has been updated on board docs. So I just wanted to call your attention that that is corrected in there, and there was a title change there. And then on our discussion agenda, I need to pull 11.03, 11.04, and 11.06. Those are tentative approvals of 3 policies. Those are still being worked on. We were hoping to have those ready. Those are not ready. Those will come back at another board meeting in May. So those 3 items were discussion, but I will pull those for no action tonight.
Okay. Were there anything that needed to be pulled for the board members?
I'd like to say a few things about 8.10. So if we could pull that one, please. It's the strategic finance plan.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Dr. Moxley.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to recommend the approval of minutes from special school board meeting of March 23rd, 2015, as presented in board docs.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
At this time, we will move into representation, and board members, at our last board meeting, you recognized 25 of the class of 50 Title I and ELL ESOL teacher assistants that had attended our first Teacher Assistant Academy. And Kelly is here from Title I, and so I'm going to ask her to come forward and do the honors, and Liz Bordone, and who is the director. And we have additional Title I teacher assistants that we'd like to recognize that also completed and participated in the program.
Good evening, Dr. Moxley, school board members, and representatives. Under the ELL Struggling Schools and Students Initiative, we did have 53 teacher assistants receive 54 hours of face-to-face training and 6 hours outside for a total of 60 hours of professional development. That was completely overseen by Kelly Kurtz, program specialist for Title I. She did an awesome job. In addition to that, she collaborated with several departments, and the directors from those departments, Katie Pearson, Kathleen Jarvis, Kathy Helbig, and Judy Miller, were wonderful to collaborate with. We also had 23 facilitators that worked with Kelly. So if you are a program specialist or a teacher that helped, please stand and be recognized. I know there are a few of you, so don't be shy. Thank you. From the schools, if you're here to support your teacher assistants when we call their names, if you'll please stand when we do. We wanted to thank Dr. Moxley and Dr. Christensen once again for their support in this initiative. We also wanted to give special thanks. Last time Rusty Dosh and this time John Redding is here for their photography. We appreciate what you did for us. All right. And those that are here, we'll start calling from Claremont Elementary, Jackie Brown. From Eustis Elementary, Patricia Fulmer. And also from Eustis Elementary, Mercedes Ibarra Seba. From Groveland Elementary, Stephen Carter. From Lost Lake, Bertie Machete. We have 4 from Mascot Elementary, and they're all present tonight. Tamara Harris. Yanhaira Lopez. VJ Samaru. And Jean Sapp. From Mineola Elementary, we have Leonora Morales. And Marisol Vila. Thank you. Okay, and we invite you to come around and shake hands with the school board members, please.
Again, congratulations. Thank you so much for going above and beyond. And Kelly Kurtz and Liz Bordone, thank you for your leadership in the program. So thank you very much for being here tonight. And that's all we have for recognition.
Okay, thank you. The next item is public input. If you have not turned in your card, you need to do that ASAP because I'm going to start. The first one is Stuart Klatt. The second one is Vance Yoakum. We have 2 podiums, one if you'll go to one and one to the other. Y'all flip a coin for it.
Flip a coin. Good evening. Thank you, Chair Stivender, Madam Superintendent, school board members. As we look at the second year of the strategic plan, I do have a couple of observations and questions. I am glad to see that I'm still on a couple of the work groups that are making recommendations, but I don't remember any meetings in the past year. So I wonder who met and made these recommendations. Lake County is indeed funded next to the last of all the Florida counties. This fact is always mentioned whenever we need something for students or teachers, but we never mention it when we need new administrative positions or when we rework job positions. The manager in me says that if you have new management tasks that need to be done, you look at rewriting existing job descriptions. If you want to add a new job or administrator to train and supervise principals, I thought that was already a part of some job descriptions. As a side quote, my student successful soar if we hired more administrators, said no teacher ever. I also noticed in the strategic plan that last year we saved about $4.6 million when we went to a 7-period day. But yet I noticed as I looked at the plan that next year we're saving $4.6 million, and the year after we're saving $4.6 million. Now we've already saved it and allocated that money out. So it's not really new savings. So as you look at the strategic plan, my suggestion would be careful of what you vote for, because whatever's in there then becomes a solid base that we work from here on out. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Vance Yoakum. I write the blog fiscalrangers.com. I also want to talk about the strategic finance plan, which I think is agenda item 8.01 under your consent agenda. You would allow public input at the 4 p.m. meeting to discuss this, and you put it on the consent agenda, so it's not even being discussed in this meeting. This is the plan that he mentioned that is a Bill Gates funded project that compared this school district to several others out of this state and found that we were overspending in certain areas compared to those other schools. So he came up with a potential savings, which has just been discussed. So now the question is, why isn't some of that savings used to pay off bonds? Why isn't it some of it to use to pay for the school buses? Why isn't it used for maybe more elective classes? But it isn't, because, as was discussed and Dr. Moxley actually mentioned, that this reflects a change in philosophy from equal spending per student to equity. And what that means is you shift money from some students to give it to others. And so you're shifting $1 million to English language learners. You're shifting money, $1 million to struggling students. You're shifting a lot of it for training, and a couple of the positions have been discussed today. And I question that this is a real change in philosophy. So what that means is, and maybe since I haven't seen a good analysis, is what I'm going to say is that, let's say, for instance, because I don't remember the exact numbers, you get $7,000 per student, okay, and you get some more for some disabled students, but that's equitable, equal spending, theoretically, per student. But instead now you're pulling money away from what we might call the middle class students, or the people that don't really have any huge problems, and you're taking it away from them, and that means the electives and other things, and you're shifting it into programs to spend on others. So there's two things. One is I'd like to see a true analysis of the shift of money, since it's no longer equal spending. Now you're going to your preferred spending to specific groups, like non-English speaking people. And you also need to discuss, and the other thing is that this plan then, if parents are paying attention, they would realize that their kids are going to get less money spent on an equal basis. It's going to these special programs instead of an average spending for all the students. And that may be a justification for charter schools. It may be a justification for homeschooling. Because if you go to a charter school, all that $7,000, almost all of it, will follow you there.
Thank you. The next two, Vincent. Okay, Montori. You knew it was you because I was stumbling. Okay. Donna Pemberton. Oh, we want to there? Oh, wait a minute. Your teacher allocation in context of zoning. Does that have to do with the rezoning?
Yes.
Okay.
Too early?
Yes, sir. We're going to do those with that at that discussion point, and I forgot. I'm sorry. Let me see if there's anything else in here. No, ma'am. These are all for that. So we can move on from public input.
And just for clarification, public input on those topics will be when we discuss at the.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that is a public hearing.
When we discuss 11.01, those will be heard.
Then
We need to do reports.
yes, we're ready for reports. So we're ready to hear from Savannah Gunther.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So this past weekend, we had prom at the new Tavares Pavilion, and it was a lot of fun. And, the setup was beautiful, and everything ran very smoothly. So now we are all preparing for graduation. We have AP exams next week, actually, so we're all studying hard for those. And then seniors have a lot of coming up. Our awards banquet is May 18th. The senior picnic is May 22nd. Baccalaureate is May 28th. And then senior week, which that's fun, is May 18th through the 22nd. So we're all anticipating graduation, which, like Dr. Moxley said, is May 29th. We had a couple students from the school qualify for state for track. So that's very excited. We're supporting them. Student government elections are coming, so it's fun to see everybody campaigning and stuff like that. And then today, spring football started. So, yes, that's everything that's happening at Tavares. Thanks for having me again, Dr. Moxley.
Thank you, Savannah, for being here tonight, and to all the seniors at Tavares High School. We are very excited about your accomplishments and graduation coming up, and congratulations to all the seniors around Lake County, and thank you for being here to represent Tavares High School in such a stellar way. I know that your parents and grandparents were with us last time. I'm not sure whether they're here with us tonight, but I do see your proud principal in the audience who is here to support you. So, Dr. Boyd, thank you for being here as well. Our next report comes from our Teacher of the Year finalist, Melissa Meadows from Treadway.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm proud to be representing Treadway Elementary at tonight's meeting. At Treadway, we believe in the importance of the 4 C's: collaboration, critical thinking, communication, and creativity. Those qualities have become part of our school culture with both the students and the faculty. Our administration has worked diligently to ensure that our students have the best of the best when it comes to our faculty, our teacher aides, our assistants, parental involvement, and access to technology. The addition of our Learning Commons has been a great benefit to our students. This offers the school community a space to interact, communicate, work on collaborative projects, and utilize iPads and ebooks. We also have a math lab and a reading lab, which allows the paraprofessionals to support the teachers by providing hands-on learning experiences that address the content standards that each grade level is currently working on. The 4 C's has also become an essential part of staff development. At Treadway, the importance of communication and collaboration is clear among the staff and the administration. When I came to Treadway 3 years ago, I became part of a family rather than part of a school. We take great pride in our community and truly care about each other. School morale is high due to the commitment by our administration to show a strong presence on campus. They say that a team is only as strong as its leaders, and at Treadway we've only grown stronger with the leadership of Ms. Hagerbrook and Ms. Christitas. Together they have helped our teachers, especially myself, become the best that we can be. They both personally mentored me into becoming a stronger, more motivated teacher. My students have benefited in many ways because of what they have taught me. I teach a second grade inclusion class with 15 students. Some have learning disabilities, some are intellectually disabled, others have behavior disabilities. I know that you probably expect me to sit here and talk about the importance of test scores in academics, but in my classroom there are lessons that I teach that are equally important. I believe in the importance of raising good citizens and stress that topic in my classroom daily. My students are taught to respect one another, stand up for what is right, and that good character is just as important as intelligence. I teach the importance of trying your best every day and that a perfect attitude will outweigh a perfect score. My students' growth as a person, rather than just a number on a report card or a test score on paper, is what matters most. To show this, recently my class collaborated with another second grade class and we began a project called the Pay It Forward project at our campus. That day we all just kind of anonymously made a bunch of posters with just nice little messages to our students and our staff. For every single employee of our school, they went around, they posted them on doors anonymously. That's kind of spread throughout our school. The students took great pride in knowing that they at least made a few people on campus that day smile. They continued the project by going home and discussing it with family members, thinking of other ways to pay it forward around the community. They'll continue it, and as Treadway will soon see, more anonymous acts of kindness will come. Thank you for the opportunity to share the positive things that we have going on in our school and in my classroom.
Thank you. It's always great to have the teacher voice at the table here with one of our Teacher of the Year finalists. So, Ms. Meadows, thank you so much for being here tonight and for giving us a great report on all the things that are going on in your classroom and at Treadway Elementary School. It was such a pleasure to come into your classroom. Your students are doing great things, and you are having great success with your students' performance. So thank you very much for teaching in Lake County.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, school board member committee reports. Are there any board members that have a report? Okay, moving on. Mr. Attorney? Okay, no unfinished business. Dr. Moxley?
Yes, at this time I'd like to recommend approval of consent agenda items 8.01 through 8.09, 8.11 through 8.15, 9.01 through 9.08, 10.01 through 10.09 as presented, with 8.10 being pulled for separate consideration.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we move to 8.10 through the consent agenda on personnel, I'd like Michelle Hoppenstead to please stand up. You just approved our new director for HR. Michelle will be assuming that role here in the middle of May. Mrs. Samuel, who has been with us a long time, is retiring, and she's going to go have lots of fun and not have to worry about a schedule. So Michelle Hoppenstead will be assuming those duties, and she was in the audience tonight. So thank you for. I'd also like to introduce to you, you approved this personnel transaction several weeks ago, but today is his first day. Kenneth Clint is our new Chief of Operations. So today's his first day, so welcome to Mr. Clint, and I wanted to first day at work, and it's a board meeting night. So how's that for getting started? So we will now move to 8.10 as separate agenda item. Board members, I do want to make a comment before I put my recommendation on the table for this one. I do take exception to the public input tonight on this particular item, and I'm going to speak out about it very clearly, because this strategic finance plan, we started this plan, yes, with a grant from the Gates Foundation. It was to build a system. The strategic finance plan is not the Gates strategic finance plan. It is our strategic finance plan. And this strategic finance plan has been a work in progress over the past now 2 years. We had the grant for 18 months. The grant has been closed out and been over. And this is now our system, our plan, and we're in the middle of this plan, and it is a 3-year plan, and so it's a rolling plan. The items in this plan did not just pop out of the sky and land in this plan. It came from our work that was started with Race to the Top that that plan was a 4-year plan, and that was several years ago, many years ago, and started with that. And we built a theory of action, of which everybody has been part of. We have had numerous meetings. We have had numerous workshops over the past 2.5 years on the instructional priorities and ways that we could realign dollars. This plan clearly outlines and articulates through the work plans over the past 2 years, 24 months, clearly where money was saved and where money was redeployed or realigned. Nothing has been done in secret. It has all been done through board workshops. We used Mind Mixer. Everything has been very transparent. This was not just a meeting 2 hours ago. This was a meeting that has been held over months and months and months. We have been extremely transparent in all the reports. There are still reports. This is a living document. And we built a system, and we built a structure, and we built project management as a way of work. So this is not the Gates grant that it was here before you tonight. It is not as a Gates grant and a Gates plan that I am recommending. It is Lake County's plan and our work and our priorities. They are realignment opportunities that have been identified. They are not the end-all, be-all. They are not the only realignment opportunities. There are many things and many budgetary decisions this board is yet to take action on that are in addition to this, because you are starting the budget process. I take exception that I am taking money out of the hands of some children and doubling up and giving it to the others. Those are the words of the speakers here tonight. Those are not my words. We are investing in programs. We are investing in programs that are going to touch the lives of all children. For example, 2 of the instructional priorities are personalized learning for students. Not some students, but all students in Lake County. And this is a move. And if you really look at the plan, we have a plan that personalized learning and customized learning is going to be available for all students in Lake County schools over the next 5 to 8 years. And we have a whole plan, and that's all outlined. And in addition to that, we have a corresponding plan that is personalized learning for teachers and leaders to develop our teachers and leaders in this new way of work and this new way of customizing learning for our students. We are piloting this in 8 schools. And yes, we are doing that on a small scale so we can work out all the systems as we go. And some people are early adopters, and some people are saying we're not quite ready to take on that work. But this is a plan that was clearly articulated and outlined with seed money to grow the programs throughout the years. We developed a tool that's called a return on an investment tool, so that as new ideas, new investment opportunities, such as the IB program that we've discussed earlier, that one's just on the start of that discussion. Some people agree with it, some people don't. But you know what? That's going to run through that whole system that was developed as a result of this program, this initiative, and we will thoroughly vet it and determine. And this board will decide, is that an instructional priority that we add to this plan in the year coming up? Do we invest in it? Do we pilot it? Do we do it in 1 school? Do we do it in 2? Do we not do it at all? Those are decisions that will be made. But this system that was developed clearly defined the system and built the tools so that we can adequately do the analysis, which, by the way, was demanded by the public for the taxpayers' dollar, so that we are spending it wisely and the most efficiently, and that we had metrics to measure it before we spent it. And now we have a system built, and frankly, I'm not going to apologize for that. I believe that was right for this district, that's right for the students of this district, and that is right for all children in this district. And that is the plan that is presented to you tonight. That doesn't exclude this board from deciding to put in any other allocation that you want to through the budgeting process. This has identified certain instructional priorities that are initiatives that we would have never been able to seed and develop a system. This is a starting point. We are in the middle of this. We've been transparent. And I am very proud and pleased of the work that has been done by the staff and the parents and the students of this district as we move to do things differently and to do things in a new, innovative way. And I'm thrilled that we've had the opportunity to build the system that we have for future initiatives to come through. And again, it doesn't stop this board from ever bringing forth a new initiative, be it IB, be it different types of allocations, be it different programs, that can be added to this plan in the future. It is an innovative way of doing business. And so at this point in time, for a recommendation part, I'm going to start by recommending the Strategic Finance Plan Work Group 2015-16 budget recommendations, which represents the second year of a 3-year plan.
Okay. Mr. Dodd, you pulled. Would you like to?
That's right. I recognize this process began long before I became on the board, and perhaps maybe that's why I struggle with some of the ideas presented in this that I don't necessarily believe are the highest priority when we look at some of the other challenges our district faces, most notably in terms of student achievement. When we talk about spending the taxpayer dollars, that is absolutely true, and they've trusted us to spend it wisely. And I know that there is a significant criticism out there that we are adding more administrative positions in a district that is already too top-heavy and not focusing enough on actual positions that will interface with children, students on a daily basis. And that's, I think, something that I brought up the very first time that we met about this after I was first elected on the board. I presented some of those concerns, and I've continued to present those in the workshops. I recognize that there are some valuable items in this plan, but because of the lack of emphasis on the student achievement and generating more teacher-type positions, I don't think anything can take the place of the value that a human teacher has with another student. I struggle to support this tonight.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
I did speak with Dr. Christensen and Ms. Marshall just regarding some concerns that I had in the position that we've approved, but within the strategic work plan. I don't know, it helped me a little bit in regards to what Mr. Dodd is talking about to know that we did discuss the concerns with continuing to add departments and continuing to add personnel, that there are some realignments that are happening, that are coming, and that they are looking at some of the redistribution and so forth. So I had the same regard whenever I first looked at the instructional allocations, but when you look also, the 25 of those instructional allocations were for teachers' assistants, and that is a dire need that we have. So I was really happy to see the attention to teachers' assistants. And I've also been told that the Florida Standards resource teachers, that those will also be continual, because my concern is that they're not being used in the way that they were instructed to be used. And so I know that that's something that we need to work on as well, because if they're supposed to function with children, then they need to be functioning with children, with unpacking those standards and helping teachers teach those children. I also wanted to ask in regards to our literacy coaches and our CRTs, I know our literacy coaches do they have a percentage of time that they are supposed to be spending in a classroom with students as well?
Literacy coaches were always designed to, in the past, have been designed to be going in and working with teachers on content and literacy delivery across the disciplines, not just in reading, but in science and social, because of the amount of text and complex text with it. I think all of that has to be looked at, and we know we rolled out the Florida Standards teachers, we rolled out the accelerated resource teachers, and we rolled out the additional teacher assistants. All of those were direct. Those were all designed to be direct student touch. We know that there are some pockets where they're being utilized very well, and that direct touch with students is right there. We also know that in some areas they're transitioning. They had late hires, if you will, meaning they had them advertised, and by the time someone got into the position, it was later in the year. So, anytime you have that first rollout, we're now going back and looking and evaluating where are we on the mark, where did we not meet the mark, so we can tweak and have that better next year. So the first rollout, we're working through all of those things. So I'm not going to hide that there are some hits and misses in there with it. But all the design of that was exactly what you said. Literacy coaches, math coaches, all those things. We're really taking a look at that coaching model. There's been some new research that has come out is about how coaches are used and how teachers are perceiving the use of coaches in the classroom. There's some research that says, that teachers want someone to come in and give that extra help with them, not coming in and telling them what to do. And so there's some research out there with that, and that just came out, so we're actually going to use that to evaluate all of that. There is nothing stopping this board if there are other priorities. I use the example of the IB, but there's other priorities, and I know that you mentioned some of them with, at the last workshop, and Mr. Dodd, I think you did too, talking about the early intervention, be it before third grade, starting at kindergarten, whether it's a pre-K initiative. All those things are still on the table to be discussed, and those can come out through the whole budgeting process as well.
My next question.
It does not. This is not the be-all, end-all. This is just where we are in the middle of these specific things that we talked about. We do share that, there's nothing better than that direct touch at the school level. And we also know the research is very clear that the two greatest direct touch at a school is the teacher first, the principal or administrative principal, assistant principal second. And this plan does look at that. When I arrived here in 2008, 2009 started the economic downturn, and we have had one budget reduction after another. And over my first 6.5 years here, I cut over $8 million out of the district budget and did not touch the schools with that. Now we're having to restore because we're seeing some of that infrastructure has been severely compromised. And you've seen that by sometimes the level of work that you can get, because I don't have enough hands on deck to do and some of the support that is needed there. I know that there is this perception out there that we're administratively top-heavy. When you look at other districts, and maybe that's what we need to do to bring that perception to, a real look at it, is really take a look at other districts that are the same size as us, and let's break down the administrative team and break that down. And I think you'd be surprised at what you see, at what the folks do and the multiple hats that they wear. And we did major cuts with that. And so, again, there is a point in time where, I don't know whether it was 8.4 or 8.6 million dollars somewhere. It was over $8 million. I cut at the administrative level when other districts didn't do that.
So we'll have the opportunity within the budgeting process that's coming up to add,
Yes,
allocate.
absolutely. And you'll notice that the report that was brought up during public input of where we were compared, that report said we were top heavy in guidance counselors and we should be cutting all these guidance counselors. This board said, no, we're not doing that. Nobody agreed with that.
Right.
That we said we needed to apply the formula equally across based on the ratios. And that's what this plan does, is apply the formula equally across the district with ratios at each level. Your formula, your allocation formula, as we're applying that and giving that out to the schools are actually gaining some allocation in guidance counselors. So this board said, no, we don't agree with that, and we're not cutting guidance counselors. And that work team has been working diligently, and they have done some phenomenal work that would have never have been done.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand that there is certainly the opportunity to add other facets or other components back in during the budget process. But where I struggle is that I view the need for primary intervention to be so urgent that I worry about the risk of that being chopped. That really I think that's more important than a lot of the items in this. And so I would have rather seen the priorities be different just a little bit, because first workshop I attended after I became a kindergarten teacher was that they told us that statistically, every child who's ahead when they leave kindergarten will tend to stay ahead the rest of their academic lives. That's going to pay dividends that are huge. No longer would we be expecting third grade teachers to perform miracles to get their students to pass a state standardized test, because they wouldn't be behind when they got there. I think that's just so important that should be the emphasis now, and some of these other things should shift to the budget process where they're subject to that axe.
And I so agree with you on that early kindergarten intervention. And if this board says you want us to make that a #1 priority over some of the other initiatives, we can add that in addition to, and put and that's why I brought Carmen Arnold on board, frankly, because I knew there needed to be immediate attention to elementary, and she is specifically looking at K1 and 2. So I don't want anybody to walk away saying that we have not paid any attention to that, because that's absolutely not true. But do we specifically want to zero in and put a specific initiative in that focuses on additional assistance and support in kindergarten? We can absolutely do that, and you can do that now with the approval of this plan, because we can put and bring back a recommendation to you through the budgeting process. Absolutely, be happy to do that and agree with that. But that is why I brought Carmen Arnold in and froze the executive director for academic services and converted that into a director of elementary to have that exact focus. So I share that with you.
Okay, so if a recommendation were to come forward during the budget process to focus on the early primary grades as some sort of intervention, whatever that looks like, I don't know. It might vary from school to school. And we get down to the nitty-gritty of the budget and say, well, there's not enough money left for this initiative. Is it fair game to come back to this strategic finance plan and unfund some of those things?
The board controls the budget.
Okay.
You
All right.
make decisions, and if you say, as a board, this is a higher priority, and we want to cut, you're going to be prioritizing. I'm just going to tell you right up front.
There's no question.
You have about 7 key things that are high-ticket numbers, and I can start naming them off to you, that you're going to have to prioritize.
And this is
IB, there's just a whole bunch. IB program, kindergarten intervention, just a whole list of programmatic and budget things that you're going to prioritize. You may say, okay, we want you to do this much of that one, and we're going to fund that much, and we're going to pilot that, or we want you to go full-fledged with that. But there are some capital expenditures that are going to have to be paid for out of the operating budget that you're going to make some decisions. Those are some tough decisions, because you're going to have to say, this is an operational thing versus an academic thing. And those are priority. And yes, that is coming up the next 60 days. That is exactly the discussion that you're going to be having through workshops.
You're going to earn your
yes.
salary, Mark.
Yes, you do.
During that.
And those
very
are
tough.
very important discussions, and I can see how important they are to this board.
Okay, you've heard the superintendent's
Comment.
comment.
Yeah. I want to first say I love it when you get fired up, by the way. I also want to say that the process, to those that aren't used to hearing it, and some of y'all are new to the room, this is really taking our school district, when we speak about the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant, it's taking a school district and making it look like a business. And so this strategic finance plan didn't evolve overnight. It was developed through committees. It is like any business and how they run it, and I'm proud to be part of it, and I'll be voting for it.
Okay. Can we get a motion on the superintendent's recommendation?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody's for it. Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Moxley.
Yes, thank you very much. And I will be looking at that kindergarten intervention very carefully.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much for bringing that forward. We will now be moving to the discussion agenda, and the very first item is the final approval of the ABC recommendation of option 8 for relief of Lake Mineola High School in the 2015-16 school year. This is a public hearing, so Mrs. Stivender, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Mr. Johnson, it is a public hearing.
Public hearing, I don't think I need to tell you there are people here.
You don't need to say anything? Okay. You're so funny. Okay. Vincent, you're first. And the second one is Donna Pemberton.
Madam Superintendent, Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much for your time. I would like to discuss another issue related to the current zoning discussion that will happen and ask the superintendent and the board's consideration. As Mr. Mathias has said, I realize I'm asking for an ideal world situation, but I think it's important to bring up. Next week is May. We teachers, your teachers, are looking forward to seeing the culmination of a year worth of hard rigor presenting itself by way of final projects, AP results, and other assessments. Unfortunately, the beginning of May also brings with it this. For those of you who can't read that, this is the annual contract teacher notification reappointment, or as my colleagues like to refer to it, thanks for the hard work, you're out of a job letter. So we will be receiving this within the next few weeks. Now, I'm not here to debate annual contracts' impact on morale or turnover. That's for the bargaining session. But I am asking for consideration with all these letters going out within the context of the zoning debate, and specifically the estimate in enrollment and the number corresponding of teacher allocations. It's another springtime ritual that has gone like this for the 3 years that I have been a member of Ms. Shepard's leadership team. Here's how it goes. Lake County Schools issues a number. It is significantly lower than the on-site administration's number for enrollment. In June, we cut teachers. They go and find jobs. We return in August. Now, this is 3 years in a row, and we find that the Lake Minneola High School administration numbers were closer to the actual enrollment. But those numbers are not believed, and whether it was Skyward or Assembler, we have to go through a process. We call that the warm body count. So we do a manual count of students. In August, we did it once. We did it twice. We did it 3 times. We did it 4 times. We did it 5 times. On the 6th time, we got some of that allocation back. That allowed us to go and post the position. We need to wait a week. Then we interviewed, we did the security checks, and by October, we were able to place some of these teachers who are from positions we cut in June. Meanwhile, Mr. Mathias, in another situation, has asked us teachers to step up. And I assure you, anybody that works for Linda Shepard steps up. So we had 12 classes in 5 subjects that we were using substitutes for. And specifically in social studies. There were many more throughout the school. And I promise you, Lake Minneola Social Studies team stepped up. And we wrote those additional lesson plans so that those kids would not lose out. Please consider keeping the allocation grandfathered until we know what the real numbers are.
Thank you.
Good evening, Lake County Board. I am Donna Pemberton. I'm a Lake Minneola mom, a teacher in Lake County, and president of the Lake Minneola SAC. As president of the SAC, it's my role to represent the voice of our students, our parents, our teachers, and our staff. As all Lake County high schools do, our Lake Minneola Hawks have a tremendous amount of school pride. Mrs. Shepard, our Mama Hawk, opened our school 4 years ago, and next month we will celebrate the graduation of our first class to go all the way from the freshman year to the senior year. During this time, our staff, our students, and our parents have truly grown to be a family. I'm sure that you would agree that it's very important for students to have strong family bonds, whether it's at home or at school. And it is very disruptive, especially in the teen years, to cause upheaval to families. Option 8 calls for a great number of our Hawks to face splitting their families between 2 schools, many of whom specifically purchased homes in the Lake Minneola School District to attend our school. In addition, it will cause, as Vin mentioned, a great upheaval of our staff and our teacher family who will have to go and look for new homes. Option 12 provides for the least amount of disruption and allows more of our family to remain whole. Our SAC board stands behind a decision that will take care of our Hawks. That's our students and our teachers, and I hope that you will too.
Thank you. Marge Eicher and Laura Montgomery. Would you give us your name?
Laura Montgomery.
Okay.
And I have a question. Where did option 12 come from? I've attended every ABC meeting with the committee, and this area was never notified that they were being rezoned, and I never saw an option 12 there. We had a community input meeting, and option 6 and option 8 were up. The people that attended that, and I was one of them, saw that there was no area north of 27 that was included in rezoning, and those people, they just think they're not being rezoned, so they're not here. I am here. I've been following it along, and I am part of option 12. I'm looking at my daughters, 2 years invested in a high school and in programs there, a major leadership role that she auditioned for and interviewed for, and she'll start out at a new school as a freshman instead of a junior. I ask that either option, wherever the boundary zones are drawn, I think the best option is the phase-in option, which takes care of the students. It allows the students that have the time invested to stay invested where they're at with school without starting over. You're looking at option 12. I was looking at it. There's a wide swath that's cut across the top all the way over to Lake Mineola to get enough students in. This is a very rural area. I live out here. My next neighbor's two acres away from me, and there's not a lot of students out there. So those students that are in Montverde area, you're looking at busing them past Lake Mineola, across 27 through Lake Mineola City, past Oak Valley, to send them to school. What time do they need to catch the bus? At 4:30 in the morning? I mean, this is a wide area, a large area that you're talking about busing. So I just ask that whichever option you look at the phase-in option, consider the students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Riker?
Good evening, Superintendent, board members, and representatives. My name is Mara Geiger. I'm retired from site-based administration for Lake County Schools in June of 2013. I was part of the administrative team that opened Lake Mineola High School under the leadership of Linda Shepard in August 2011. Although I worked in many schools throughout the county, Lake Mineola will always be home to me. I do not envy you the difficult decisions you're facing. When we opened in 2011, we had approximately 1,300 students in just 3 grades, 9th, 10th, and 11th, with 9th being significantly larger because the other 2 grades were allowed to opt out of moving in order to remain with a special program that they may have already started. We relished the extra space and the uncrowded hallways and lunchroom, but we knew that that low number was for 1 year only. Within the first weeks of school, as our student population settled in, our in-house administrative team estimated that we would have over 1,800 students in year 2, 1,900 in year 3, and at least 2,000 by this year. These estimates were based on that initial 9th grade class soon to graduate. These in-house estimates were met or exceeded each year. And each year, the estimates produced by the county fell far short of reality. I have tried to look for understanding of this repeated error and the havoc it created, trying to believe it was based on the newness of the school. But unfortunately, the poor ability to estimate the number of students expected for a new school year was evidenced at each school to which I was ever assigned. My faith in the ability to accurately predict student population by the county was and still remains very, very challenged. The current overcrowding at Lake Mineola has been referenced as the Lake Mineola problem, with efforts made to shift students who are residents of Mineola and Claremont, whose parents own and rent homes within the existing boundary lines away from the school and into the South Lake boundary lines. With all due respect to both South Lake and East Ridge High School, all schools are not created equal. As Lake Mineola opened, she battled with some board members at that time, as well as rampant public opinion and media coverage, that the infusion of individual technology would be a disaster. The use of technology at Lake Mineola is not simply a success, it's a triumph, and the primary tool for teaching and learning in the 21st century. I take that also as truth from my own child, who is a doctor of education and teaching at the college level. To expect students who are thriving in this environment to return to a traditional school setting is, in their eyes, tantamount to handing them a slate and chalk. But the desire of parents to keep their students at Lake Mineola is about far more than technology. It's the entire culture of the school. I'm going to try to shorten that up because Mama Hawk expects everyone to know the Hawks Creed. Hawks are honorable, academically focused, wise, kind-hearted, and successful. Thank you.
Okay.
I ask you to do the same. Please support option 12.
Thank you. Dawn Malden and Lisa Perez. Or is it Liza? Liza?
Good evening. I am a concerned citizen, parent, and teacher of Lake County Schools, and I would please urge you to please vote no on 8 and yes on 12. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Perez?
Thank you. My name is Liza Perez.
You want to pull it down?
I live in Oak Valley. I sent an email out to everyone last night with a map attached to the neighborhood that was behind Coles in Claremont that goes to Lake Mineola High School. I don't actually understand why that neighborhood is zoned for Lake Mineola when Eastridge would be the closest school to them. I don't know if you guys got my email. I did get some emails back saying you did, but that's what I was told. We're in an A school, we're zoned for an A school, and we're being sent to a C school. So those numbers, if it was an A school to an A school, it's different. But an A school to a C school, and we pay more taxes in Mineola than they do in Claremont, and we're being pulled out and sent somewhere else. And I just don't think it's fair for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda Lopez and Stephen Tibbetts. Brenda Lopez. Go ahead, Mr. Tibbetts.
Board members, Superintendent Moxley, first I want to thank you for your service. Secondly, I want to give you my heartfelt concern in dealing with this issue, and I have some suggestions for you. First of all, never, ever, ever again name a school for a location. Because, rightfully so, people who live in Mineola presume that that is their school. And most of us would acknowledge that that's pretty steady thinking. Unfortunately, you did some other things here. You created a powerful school with technology that I am sure has attracted other students from the district into it, taking up spaces. This afternoon, we learned that there are 25 eighth graders who have siblings in that school and would like to stay and go to school with their siblings. I wonder what would happen if we looked at the people who transferred into that school who don't live in Lake Mineola and are taking up spaces. Could we come up with 25 slots to accommodate those students? Finally, unrelated, but somewhat related, is the IB program. And we heard earlier tonight about we should try to provide equality. I would hope as a board that you would understand how absurd that concept is. Our students are like raw materials. They differ in so many different ways. We need remedial education at one end, and at the other end, we have, if you will, exceptional children who happen to be bright. And my God, don't let this opportunity pass. But when you create it, put it in a school that isn't overcrowded, that will pull people from some of these other schools and will enhance that school that you put it in, because you have no idea what pulling brilliant students together into high school will do. You saw it somewhat in Lake Mineola with their technology. It will astound you when you create an IB program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Did Brenda Lopez come back in? Miss Lopez? Want to make sure you had an opportunity. And the other one would be Cynthia Myers, if she would come forward. Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. I kind of understand that Mineola is a Lake County school, but being a resident of Mineola, I feel like it's our school. And my son is a 9th grader there, and it's a great school. And I just hope that my daughter can join him and stay in that school. So I ask that you please vote no on 8. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cynthia Myers. I like how people talk about the Hawk family, but apparently not all the Hawks are welcome to stay, because under option 12, not all the Hawks get to stay that are there now. We talk about sending kids to schools. You don't send them to school without technology, but it's okay, I guess, for some kids to get kicked out. I'm sorry if I'm emotional, but I feel like people are working overtime to kick certain kids out, and I don't understand why. Mr. Dodd, I'd like to know why you're not supporting all of Claremont's kids, because that's your district. You only seem to be concerned about a certain area of Claremont, specifically Lincoln Park. You said you don't like option 8 because Lincoln Park has been rezoned so many times, and that's true. But when have they been rezoned and downtown Claremont has not? Never. We've always been together on all the rezoning. The cut street's always been 8th or 12th, never east. We've been rezoned just as many times. South Lake, East Ridge, Lake Mineola, and now you want to send us back to South Lake. You said 8 splits up families. All the options, including the newest one, splits up families. It's just sometimes it's Mineola families split, and sometimes, like 12, it's Claremont families split. I need to know why it doesn't bother you that Claremont families get split. By your own numbers at the last workshop, you're talking about only 26 children under option 8 that wouldn't be able to follow their siblings. Let them waive in. That's not going to make or break anything. You say you don't like 8 because of the cost, but it's cheaper than building or putting in portables. It gets the job done for the overcrowding. And you could do what my county does, is I offered this solution at the previous workshop, that you allow parents the option of getting their kids to the school who get rezoned if they can provide the transportation. I mean, at least then parents have an option and our kids have a chance. One of the programs my son is in, indoor percussion, is not anywhere else in South Lake County. It's a class and they compete, and he's serious about it. He wants to do it professionally. It's a big deal. Lake Mineola High School was 3rd this year in the state and 1st last year. How is it fair that the student next to him gets to continue and he can't? 8 isn't my first choice either. But you know why I want 8? Because that's what the kids want, because that keeps all the kids there at the school. Ask them if they want to leave and go to South Lake next year. I bet you won't get many volunteers. I need to know, sir, why you won't represent all of us in Claremont, because when I go home tonight and speak with my son, depending on how you vote tonight, I have to either tell him everything is fine and he can finish his junior and senior year with his teachers and his programs, or everything he knows that has made him safe and successful is gone. And he's going to want to know why. He's 2nd in his class. He takes his school seriously. This did not need to be dragged out like this. You chose your committee, they made a recommendation, and you voted for it twice. Please stop flip-flopping and push it through so all of our Hawks, all of our children can finish what they started, and let the principals get started on next year. Our kids have already gone out for leadership positions. They signed up for courses. Music and sports camps are already getting ready to start. Please be fair to all our children. Thank you.
The next two are Sandy Follis and Ralph Atchley.
Would you like me to go?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the time tonight. I have a son. I live in Mineola. I've lived there. My name is Sandy Follis. I've lived there for 18 years. And originally, I had a daughter in South Lake a long time ago. That's where we were zoned. And unfortunately, she didn't make it through school. She dropped out. Then we got rezoned to Eastridge, and I have a daughter that graduated and went on and got her bachelor's. And now I have a son, and he is graduating from Mineola, Lake Mineola High School, and he has honors. He's graduating with a 4.0. He's doing so wonderful, and we've been so excited for his brother to start 9th grade this upcoming year, and we've been zoned Lake Mineola High School. Right now, I hadn't spoke before because when I went to the first meeting, we're in that little area that keeps getting, well, it didn't get taken out. It was in the first map, it was in the second map, and then when we got to 8, it was taken out. And it's that little area, Silverton and Bloxham, that got taken out, and then everything else kind of looked like it stayed the same. So I came tonight to speak and then found out there was a 12, which puts it back in. So there's 3 maps that has us in there, and only 1 map, which is the one you guys are voting on tonight, that we're not in. So I don't know how and what. I missed something. I traveled in January and February, so somehow I must have missed something. But my son, Skylar Follis, would really like to follow in his brother's footsteps. And I'm here to ask you guys, when you're voting tonight, to please just consider that. And I can't send him to South Lake because of the person that he is. And I would end up having to homeschool him and putting him in front of a computer and go to work every day. I have a business in Mineola. I brought the business to Mineola. I support Mineola. That's where I live. I understand why people say that it doesn't mean that it's Mineola School, but it's 3 miles away from me. Eastridge is 3.9 miles away from me. South Lake is 7.5. I would prefer Eastridge if we were changing things around and not have to go that far and go from an A to a C school. Anyway, thank you for listening to me tonight. Please consider 12. Thank you.
Ralph Atchley? No? Okay. Jennifer Ackerman? And Dominic, and I can't say your last name. You know who you are. Okay. You're next. The other one. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm a part of this Mineola Claremont group who have found every flaw in the overcrowding at Lake Mineola and the flaws on option 8. I am so happy there is another option, option 12. No one can agree on option 8. This gives Mineola, Lincoln Park, and Claremont hope. Let's not break up families, communities, and spend $210,000 in busing. A whole area needs to be moved to alleviate these issues and others. Either option, rezoning will happen again. While I hope that parents with false addresses, bad zone waivers, and students that do not belong at Lake Mineola High School will be addressed. So this rezoning does not happen to honest students, families, and communities again. 132 students and their families are counting on you for a no vote on option 8 and yes on option 12. Please give these students and their families peace so that they can start preparing for their high school adventures. Wednesday is my birthday. Please give me a gift that I will talk about and take to the nursing home with me when I go, because I will definitely remember it. Again, no on option 8, yes option 12.
Thank you.
Thank you for the time to speak. It was discussed earlier that there were only 25 children of siblings. That's 8th graders. I think I've got 3 myself, and I think if you extend it to 7th, 6th, and 5th, you would get a lot more than 25. So kind of distorts that that fact. One thing that's just been frustrating all along, and I've voiced it to you all through emails, and I've tried to be respectful about it all, is there never seems to be, part of the solution never seems to be examining the enrollment as far as the schools, like what kids belong in what school and how that's reconciled. We look at the geo data in one sense, and then we use projections in another to conveniently show how things shift. Groveland's growing faster. Groveland's experienced similar and more growth than us, but somehow they lose students every year. Now, I talk personally to someone in your equal status in another county, and explain the situation objectively. And the one thing they said is, before I would ask anybody to move, I would try to figure out, are we enforcing the boundaries in the first place, or what are we doing to make sure that when you vote for whatever you got to vote for, you can stand up there and say, look, hey, I'm sorry, but these are the facts. And people have been asking this for 6-7 months now. And first of all, it's too big of a deal. We can't do it. People shrug their shoulders. We've come back, with all due respect to Mr. Fix, and we've tried to counter his numbers, and then we go from geodata to projections. Like in option 12, all of a sudden in the meeting we hear beforehand, all of a sudden we invent 200 people out of thin air out of a projection. But yet there's more people moving into Groveland, or more occupancy, but somehow people who move there do not have high school students. And I don't mean to be sarcastic or disrespectful, but the point is it just doesn't reconcile. It doesn't add up. So when you factor in all this, the fact that we are here 7 months later, and I respect all the hard work that the ABC committee did and Mr. Fix, and I don't envy their position at all. But knowing what we know, knowing that there's so many question marks, you can go with an option 12 and not take the drastic step of splitting a city, splitting these families, and you can then also inwardly look and say, hey, let's get our stuff straight at these schools. I don't know. I don't know if it's a policy from here. I don't know if it's administrative, who allows these things to happen. But I know one thing. If you try to go to Winter Park High School, try to go to Olympia High School, try to get in the parking lot, you cannot get in the parking lot of those schools. You cannot get into those schools without valid proof. Dr. Moxley, you cited statistics or something where you sorted some data by addresses on students on another issue, I think in the pre-meeting. Pardon me, my head's kind of jumbled. But I think it's within your realm of ability to do that. I'm an auditor, I'm an accountant. You get a spreadsheet of kids. You can look and see. You can look clearly and see that there are a lot of kids using the same, similar, wrong addresses and so forth. Anyway, thank you for your time. Please go with option 12.
Thank you. John Artemovich. I'm sure I said that wrong. So you can say it pretty good? That's unusual. And Courtney Franklin. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is John Artemovich. The decision you guys are going to make tonight is going to directly affect my household. Madeline, raise your hand. This is my daughter. She's currently at Lake Mineola High School. She's a straight A student. Zachariah, raise your hand. It's my son. He's in Claremont Middle, and he's an A and 1B student.
Embarrassing him.
Your decision, listen, I have a full-time job. I also operate a business in our community. I also volunteer my time in our community. My wife works. I've been married for 23 years, so you can imagine, as many of you have families and stuff, that you're busy and it's late and we're here and we're speaking because if you guys choose 8 tonight, you're going to split my house. And I'll have one kid going one and the other going the other way. And I don't know how I'm going to explain to them, or how would you tell them, Madeline and Zachariah, tonight we just couldn't come together and come up with the best solution. I mean, 8 is the solution. And I appreciate all the effort that's gone into creating option 8, but perhaps that's not the best solution. And so all things considered, 12 would not impact people as much. I know I am not the only resident who has this problem. I was here in February at the meeting, as many other meetings, and people were speaking the same thing. I bought my house in the area because it was zoned for that school, and I don't want to have my family be hurt. So please, folks, with all your experience and all of your education combined, you guys can come up with a solution that impacts the least amount of people. And I'd like to be able to tell my children who are sitting here looking at you tonight to please pick 12. Thank you.
Hello, Courtney Franklin. I am a proud teacher in South Lake County. I am a South Lake mother. I'm a Gray Middle School mother, and I teach at Pine Ridge Elementary. In the interest of full disclosure, I was on the ABC, and option 8 was half of my idea. When we got placed on the committee, our goal was to get all 3 South Lake high schools at 95% capacity. East Ridge was right about 95% capacity. Lake Mineola was about 125, and South Lake was about 65. So that's where it made sense for us to work with the Lake Mineola lines and the South Lake lines to even them out. It could have been a very simple task. We could have looked at the map and said, you guys go to South Lake, you guys go to Lake Mineola, and you guys go to Eastridge. And that's that, and wash our hands of it. But we're not talking about things. We're talking about kids. And we always tell them in the beginning of every high school career, get invested in something. Join the band, join a club, join the student government. Get in with a group. Find your niche. Option 8 came about because we had so many kids who really moved our hearts, who came to us and said, I've been there 2 years. I'm going to be the captain of the football team. I'm going to be the president of FFA. I love this CTE that I'm in the middle of. I can't finish it at another school. So that's where it came about, just to give you a little bit of background. We obviously don't have a crystal ball. If this school board had a crystal ball 4 years ago, the lines that are drawn now would not have been drawn. They skewed them because at the time there was a housing development that was going to go up in Groveland with 5,000 new houses. It's still not there. So that's why the lines are so far over. We have 3 schools that are within 8 to 10 miles. So I don't see how this school board financially and fiscally responsibly could put portables in a school when it has brick and mortar classrooms just waiting, just sitting there, waiting for kids to fill them up. I don't see how that could be equitable at all. Because Lake Mineola is, and believe me, my heart goes out to you. I don't have a dog in the fight. My kids go to South Lake. They're going to stay at South Lake because nobody else goes there. But I understand completely, and that's why I didn't want to move any Lake Mineola kids out of Lake Mineola. The ones that are going to go in, they're not there yet. They're not invested yet. So maybe let them go to South Lake and let them get invested. It's a great school. My 2 boys go there. They have AP classes, honor classes, everything. I just don't see how you can possibly think about spending that much money when there's brick and mortar classrooms just waiting to be filled up.
Thank you. Becky Shank, that's it, right? Okay. And Michelle Countryman.
Hi, school board. I am probably the only person here from Arrow Tree. I live in Arrow Tree. I knew nothing about this until last night when my friend texted me. What are we going to go home and tell those students? It's great that all of you people can bring all your people of support. Arrow Tree knows nothing about this. Those kids have already registered at Lake Mineola. They're already planning for next year. South Lake has already had their open house. My 8th grader going into 9th grade will not get to go to that open house. This decision should have been made a long time ago, but it wasn't. And now we're trying to change a plan that a group of people don't even know about. How is that fair? It's not fair. When are we going to tell the Arrow Tree parents? When are we going to let them know that their kids are going to be going to South Lake versus Lake Mineola when they've already registered at Lake Mineola? When is my child, who's a straight A student at Claremont Elementary, 3rd in her class, going to be able to register for her classes? It's not fair at this late of a notice to change. So I urge you to vote for option 8.
Ms. Countryman, you want to pull that mic down a little bit so we can hear you?
My name is Michelle Countryman, and in all honesty, my daughter's a freshman at Mineola High School. My son graduated last year. So I have nothing to lose and nothing can gain. I could be at home watching TV right now and saying, this doesn't affect me. I have lived in the city of Mineola for 20 years. My husband and I moved out here. And I'm hearing a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas. And I'm hearing it's a business. It's not a business. What I do know is this. I remember, and I don't know if any of you board members were here or remember, when the chambers was like this tiny. And everybody had to pack their way through, okay? But that was only for big deal issues, okay? Otherwise, there was 3 people here. if that, we were lucky, okay, that we would see the people that were here. Something happened tonight. Miss Eicher is here. My son had Miss Eicher in middle school, and she followed them over to Mineola High School. And this senior year, when he graduated last year, she surprised the students, and she showed up. The students were crying. They were hugging. My son, 6'1", he got emotional. That's what a community is. That's what a town is. Mineola is more, and it's no longer that town that you hear on the news doing the nutty things. We knows Channel 8's done it, okay? Mineola has grown into these wonderful, concerned citizens. So has Claremont. So has Lake County. But we got to remember something, that sometimes when we get elected, we forget. And that's the heart and the soul the teachers put into this, the heart and the soul the principals. Mama Hawk calls my phone, and I can tell you almost what she's going to say by the end of the conversation, because I can repeat it. So we parents are growing that way. And as a city of Mineola, we have grown from a teeny tiny little speck to a group of people who say, let us stay together. We've earned it. Because we've been through so much. Everybody else has earned it as well. However, as I said, when you can have an assistant principal come back on senior night, some of y'all have seniors, going to graduate, and the kids gather around, you can imagine what that's like. You can only get that when you keep people together. And brothers and sisters, my daughter's there. My son graduated. My son's bowling team went to state last year. My daughter plays lacrosse. She plans on wanting her team to go to state. Why? Because she's following in her brother's footsteps.
Thank you. And the last card is Julia Gatewood.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I know I've emailed all of you, and you've all responded, and I appreciate your engagement in this issue. And there's a lot of priorities that are coming from all over the place, and I feel for everybody. I mean, what the woman just said about splitting up families, I'm a mother of 2 children. One of them is going to be a junior at Lake Mineola High School, and the other one is going to be an 8th grader at Claremont Middle. So under option 8, my younger one would go to South Lake and my older one would graduate from Mineola High School. So I think what it boils down to when you look at 8 versus 12 is the priority of the existing students that are at the high school graduating where they started. That is my number one priority. My daughter is in 11th grade. She's in a lot of different programs. You've heard a lot of people talk about why they want to keep their kids together. And I think that is the number one priority. Versus option 12, the notion is that you'll split families. You know, the situation that we're in is there's not going to be any optimal solution that's going to be 100% positive for everybody. So something's got to give somewhere. So with regard to splitting families, which I'm in that situation as well, I would still place the priority of my students going to the school, graduating from the school that they start in. So if my younger one starts at South Lake, I want her to finish at South Lake. Moving somebody in their junior year is very devastating in my mind. So I think that, given that the priority, which everybody is speaking to, unfortunately, under both scenarios, there are costs that have to be addressed. I believe that option 8 is better for the cost of both portables and transportation, because both of them in option 8 will be phased down. I think option 8 addresses the issue over the next few years, whereas option 12, with the numbers that were presented, I don't think solves the issue. There's a marginal improvement next year, but in the outer years, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. So I think splitting families, if it's less than 25, if it's 45, whatever, if the priority is not to split your family, then by all means the families could all go to South Lake, or I would say, agree with the other mother that spoke about waving them into Lake Mineola. That could be addressed easily with the small numbers that we have. I think Lake County growth will continue to be a challenge, and I believe that the ABC recommendation, I put a lot of faith in that. They did a lot of hard work. They looked at researched every nook and cranny with regard to what the optimal solution is, and I think that their recommendation is brilliant, given that the number one priority should be keep the kids in the school to graduate where they started. And option 8 does that. So I urge you all to vote for option 8. Thank you very much.
Okay. Dr. Moxley, how do we want to?
I'm going to probably ask for some help from our legal counsel here. The item that is before the board tonight is a recommendation for final approval of the ABC recommendation for option 8 for relief of Lake Mineola High School in the 2015-16 school year. This option is the final approval. It's been duly advertised. It's coming back for consideration. I think Mr. Johnson, the board can discuss, that is the recommendation that's on the table, but as I understand it, the board can discuss all of the above. Yeah. But there would need to be a motion made to either do final approval or something else.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
There could be no motion made at all.
Right.
Or there could be a motion and no second. It really depends on what your recommendation. You need to make a recommendation, and then the board would make a motion one way or the other, then we'll have to go from there.
Okay. So my recommendation that's on the table is to provide final approval of the ABC recommendation of option 8 for relief of Lake Mineola High School in the 2015-16 school year.
Okay.
At this point in time.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And now we open it up for discussion.
And discussion can include any of the.
Right. Any of the stuff. Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second on the floor for final approval of option 8. Discussion on anything else that was discussed at the workshop or tonight.
I'll start, or you can start.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is not an easy decision. There's a lot of passion, and I appreciate both sides. I appreciate the ABC committee because they had a hard decision to make, and 11 of them came together and approved unanimously option 8. One mother has a child at Lake Mineola High School and has an incoming 9th grader, and she knows her house will be split, that her 9th grader will be going to South Lake High School while her high school student's able to finish out. The number one concern for me is that the students who are at Lake Mineola High School get to finish at Lake Mineola High School. If I had a child there and he was in 9th or 10th grade and was on the golf team and was going to be vice president of a club, was in his AP classes and doing very well, to say you now have to move out of there, go to the other high school where you won't be going into those positions because you're the new child at that school. The kids who are already there have earned first right. So for me, the students have got to be able to finish. We have had multiple options come before us. If we don't support option 8 tonight and we support something else, we still do not have an answer for you. This means that we have to wait another 28 days, which puts us at the end of the school year, where your child still will not know where he or she will be going in the fall, whether they get to stay at Lake Mineola or whether they're going to start at South Lake High School. We have capacity at South Lake High School. I hear about Lake Mineola being an A school and South Lake being a C school. Well, there's a lot of wonderful things that go on at South Lake High School. And if they have the numbers, I know that they are going to be able to show great gains. Now let's talk financially, because the taxpayers of Lake County are always looking at us and make sure that we are spending the taxpayer dollars wisely. Because there is capacity, meaning student stations at South Lake High School, we can put no additions onto Lake Mineola High School or even onto East Ridge High School, because the state says you cannot add capacity at a school that's already overcrowded when you've got capacity at a neighboring school. With option 12 would mean that we would have to add portables to Lake Mineola High School where there's still room at South Lake. If we were to add 7 portables, we are looking at $426,740 just to put in the portables. Then we would be spending $83,000 over the next 3 years on lease payments. So we would be spending $1,008,000 in order to have overcapacity at one school and room at another school. We've heard about the transportation. Transportation, if we went with option 8, would total $212,000 over the 3 years. We're looking at $60,000 the first year, $91,000 the second year, and $60,000 the third year. So does the taxpayers want us to spend $1,008,000, or do they want us to spend $212,000? Because there are other needs at so many of our schools. Our audit report for transportation says we have to buy new school buses. If you looked at our school buses that are on the road today, many of them need to be replaced. We've got to come up with $4 million to buy just 40 school buses. We have so many other needs. There are other schools in the Claremont area that need attention. But there's also schools in my end of the county, which is Lady Lake, Leesburg, and Fruitland Park. Fruitland Park Elementary desperately needs some help. And you'll hear from the other school board members that schools in their areas also desperately need help. We don't have the funds. We do not have the funds, and growth is back. And so it is not an easy decision, but in order to finish out this school year, and so parents and students know where they're going and that they can plan their schedules, also Mr. McHugh will be able to add more programs at South Lake High School. So the same classes offered at Lake Mineola will be offered at South Lake, but if we don't let him know now, he's not going to be able to get the programs in place, the teachers hired, the books ordered. And so with that, I will support option 8.
Can I ask a question about the costs to clarify?
Yes, sir.
Because the document that was handed out to us in the workshop today, under option 12, it says that there would be no infrastructure costs, and one of the bullets as well says it requires no planned infrastructure cost during the 4-year assessment period. So we're not talking portables under option 12. That the cost of option 12 would just be the transportation of $80,955. Is that right?
I would like staff.
That's correct. That is correct. It is correct. You weren't listening to the conversation today.
Mr. Mathias. Can we have Mr. Davis come up?
Mr. Davis, can you step up here? Board members, we'll need to go back to the documents that were talked about in the workshop, and I'm specifically looking at the recap table highlighting pros and cons associated with options 8 and 12. Yeah. It's a long document. If you'll look at option 12, there are two. There's option 12 with grandfathering. There's option 12 without grandfathering. I think you have to be specific which one you're referring to. If you're referring to option 12 without grandfathering, meaning that the students will move immediately, meaning the students that are in only seniors would remain. 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students would make the change, so students would not stay incomplete. That's the without grandfathering. You are looking at transportation costs, but no portable costs. If you're staying with the philosophy that Lake Mineola would still continue to use some of those other types of strategies with floating teachers and using all the resource space to accomplish any of the numbers that she has, like she's currently doing, meaning Ms. Shepard. If you're looking at option 12 with grandfathering, meaning that you are only moving rising 9th graders, which is a smaller number, then you're going to have a larger number of students remaining at Lake Mineola High School, which would require the portables. And there you see some transportation costs and portable costs. So I think that in clarifying, Mrs. Brandenburg may have been talking about option 12 with grandfathering as opposed to without grandfathering. I'm not sure. But there are two distinct columns
Well,
there.
I asked staff earlier today if with option 12, would we have to put in portables? And I was told yes. I was told that at the workshop also. So I am basing my information off of that.
And that's with the grandfathering.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I was a little bit confused with option 12 without grandfathering, that's a 2-year solution. Year 3, I mean, at some point we would have to consider portables with option 12 after the 2-year period if we're going to let it function. And I am really like, is this, because option 8 is a 4-year phase-in, but option 12 and whether we grandfather or not, we're really just, I mean, when I consider option 12, I'm looking at 2 years.
Yes, that is correct.
If you are considering that the projections are accurate, because they don't match the geodata and they don't match the permits that are being offered right now.
Would you like to, Mr. Davis, would you like, because I know that you did presentation on the workshop, I just was referring back to the documents that were presented I'm not aware of conversations that took place outside of the workshop, so you'll need to, if there's any additional information that needs to be shared. I know what we presented at the workshop today.
Correct. I mean, that's essentially what we've talked about earlier at the workshop is what you see here. The numbers basically haven't changed. They're still the same. We're having to base the decision on geocoded students because that's historically how we've always, and really the only means that we have in order to look at that and of course, Deanna Newman provided us the projections based on the different options, and so we've used her information to add to that geocoded data because that's the only basis for which we have to work.
But the geodata that you use on option 8 actually takes Lake Mineola to 1,433 students in the 4th year. Although then you look at projections and it's way off the chart. So it's we've got to accept one or the other is right. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the data that we've presented is essentially what the committee originally reviewed based on the October information with the information that Deanna's provided for the related projections for both sets of scenarios. And so, I mean, Mr. Fix, if you have anything in addition to that.
Two things. One thing that we often forget is that about half of the attendance boundary of Lake Mineola is comprised of the city of Claremont.
Yes.
And the part of the attendance boundary that's growing the quickest is that part which makes up the municipal boundary of Claremont. So a lot of growth is going into that area. On another note, portables are not portables. In option 8, the number continues to come down, lessening what could be a reliance on portables. So the thought of the ABC was we bring the number down because we know that right now the school is operating at 290 over capacity. In the first year, we're bringing it down slightly, but eventually we get it to where it's only 34 over capacity. If they were to come up with an option that were to have kept the school at a higher number over capacity, well, they wouldn't have had that option because they were told they were not to look to place portables there. So it really comes down to how long do we want the school to operate over capacity and not provide portables for the school.
I think it's important to remember the context in which conversation we're having, because of the fact that when we talk, and going back to the ABC committee, they looked at trying to solve the problem and looked at it over 4 years, and they went in, and because they were looking at it with a grandfathering in, they started out grandfathering in students and not expending any dollars for portables. Now the question is, and I read in an article, one of the newspaper articles, that talked about all the options require portables. Well, if you're going to take the philosophy that there never should be a teacher floated, you should never use space except for how it was intended to be used, like a resource room, should not be used as a classroom, then yes, Lake Mineola, under any one of these options, should have portables put to it. Today. Should have September of this year, along with a whole list of other schools in Lake County that float teachers right now today. But the fact of the matter is the capital budget does not provide for portables to just be moved in the perfect textbook case scenario. So the ABC committee they were trying to solve the problem utilizing the resources that were available with the highest priority to fill bricks and mortar seats without expending portables. And they did it with I don't want to put words in their mouth, but to hear the commentary that has been made over the past several workshops, being the most student-friendly with currently attending Lake Mineola students that were already in the school. Understanding that the best case scenario was not the best case scenario in the fact of rising students with having one child here and one child at another school. You know, you have to start somewhere. So they looked at the currently attending Lake Mineola High School students. So again, we need to qualify the question that's being asked with the answer to that question. I think is very important.
I'm
sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Luke. Well, I was going to ask too, with geocoded data, that's our current students. That's projecting no growth as opposed to the population that's projecting, that's Deanna Newman's growth, right? So is there the middle ground? We either have no growth or lots of growth. I mean, those are our two data points to consider.
But it would seem to me that what we discussed today earlier is that growth in Claremont, where we have capacity at East Ridge, we would be looking at moving these 200 students that you're projecting in Claremont could conceivably go to East Ridge.
They could. The problem is that there's a lot more growth because that's just one quadrant of Claremont. That's that northeast quadrant of Claremont. So south of Highway 50 is more of Claremont and even more growth that is occurring as well. So as I think Courtney Franklin was stating, when we were looking at the capacities of the school, and I think at East Ridge, I think the 95% was in reference, at least, I can't remember if it's to this portable, to its permanent or permanent plus portable. But the fact is East Ridge is getting very full with its permanent, so we're going to start placing portables there. Now, we know we have a number of spaces to put portables there, and we know that school has some flexibility because we have had it very overcrowded before Lake Mineola was open. But there's still plenty of growth south of 50 where East Ridge is going to be growing as well and has been growing.
And that was my question when I met with Mr. Fix's department, is on our 5-year capital plan, there's nothing that even mentions relief for high schools in the Claremont area or South Lake area. And so even when we looked at the 5-year projections, we have 3 schools that are almost 100% to capacity. So at some point, with portables, we have to address the need down there regardless. I'll tell you guys, and I know Roseanne spoke to this earlier, but I have lost sleep. I can tell you guys, it has really bothered me, this whole moving students in this emotional context. My girls are so many years apart that I would have a senior and a freshman at the same time. And having gone through it myself, high school, I would assume that it would be more important for Jensen, my oldest daughter, to be in her programs with her friends, with her kids, with all of those people, and to have Emory go to South Lake High School and start fresh there as well, because those kids are so invested and vetted. And to be honest with you, when I even took myself back to my sister, who was older than me, who was prom queen and homecoming queen and blah, 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 from Tavares High School, I didn't see her very much when I was on the campus as a freshman and a sophomore when she was a junior and a senior respectively. And I would also like to even push in more that I don't think either option is the best solution. I agree with you guys there that there's not any more time, and not that time should make this decision, but what option 8 will do is allow all of Mineola residents that are at Mineola High School to stay there. And one thing I think we can consider as a board is how in the world can we open up enrollment in our high schools. We had Mr. Tibbetts speak about the IB program that can really entice some people to come over to South Lake on their own. We have programs at both of those schools that we can build. We have the 2+2+2 program coming on. So I feel like option 8 would steady the population that there's now and give us the opportunity to work up our middle school and our high school to where your siblings can go to Lake Mineola High School if they choose to. They can go to Eastridge High School if they choose to. They can go to South Lake High School if they choose to, because there's a program there that's strong and that will take your kids where they want to go in the future. And that is, to be honest with you, what I want out of this board is 3 excellent choices for our students at high schools, and to provide our students the option to have the open enrollment and provide for their future beyond high school more than anything. So.
And Stephanie, that got brought up at one of the other workshops, and that is something that the superintendent and her staff is looking at.
Right.
But it's not a quick fix. You can't. That's something you have to work on.
Right.
So I agree with you on all that. And I remember your sister being homecoming queen.
But
I also remember you being an excellent softball player and a cheerleader. So that's okay. My issues are what the teacher brought up back there. We needed to have this done last month or the month before, because he's right. Teachers don't know where they're going. They're just like the students and the parents. They don't know what's happening, and we're keeping them on edge. And I'm hurrying, Bill. I did like Mr. Tibbetts' comments also. I put those down. We are working on some of those good ideas that you brought up, Mr. Tibbetts. And I do feel for all the parents. I had 4 kids. I was lucky enough to live in the same spot in a local school, Tavares High School, schools, because we never grew in Tavares. We're beginning to do that now, and I have issues at Tavares Elementary that are similar to this. So I do understand both sides of this issue, but I want it resolved, so I am going to be in favor of 8. Okay, we have a motion.
Well, I want to make a couple of comments since you. The first one is to the contract, which I don't think that's exactly what you were saying, is that you get a letter in May. The reality is, by state statute, no one can be offered a JOB until June the 30th. So we have time to recover on this. Number 2, we had a presentation on mileage today, and it said that option 12 would cost $45,000 and estimated 50 additional miles daily. I drove the routes. It is 8 miles. That's 16 miles. So regardless of which way you go, there's no way that you can get to 50 because that was going to the 2 farthest points. Certainly you have to make pickups, but you have to do that for either one. It's 8 miles difference, and I handed this out to y'all, so you've got the documentation. Mm-hmm. The last is the discussion on portables. And what we talked about today in the workshop was how creative Mrs. Shepard has been in using her resources. And at what point do we say enough is enough of that and accept that we need student stations? So we are going, in my opinion, I want to hear how creative and resourceful we've been and how that impacts our students. So option 12 actually gave 42 additional FTE relief to South Lake to enhance programs. I do agree that we have a long-term strategy, or we have a longer opportunity and a long-term strategy, and that the idea that we would split, even if it's 25 families, was what we were told today, but we heard from a family. Every family has a face. That we heard from a community. That community has embraced their school and supports their school. The same as Leesburg has, and Umatilla has, and Tavares has. And I think we are doing a disservice to split that community, and so that's where I stand. So I think we're ready for a vote.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say is I forgot the arrow tree. I brought it up during the workshop, and I'm so glad you were here tonight to voice that. The other one, Ms. Montgomery said, where did option 12 come from, and that none of the parents knew anything about it. It came from a board member looking for other options to take care of all the students and the transportation and those type things. So, I mean, we've all been working on different things, trying to come up with losing sleep and other things, working staff to death to try to come up with a solution that was best for all the students at all 3 schools in the South End. I do want, and I read this today, and I'm not going to read it to you. I'm going to give it to Livy back there. But back in 1985, the same issue came up. I'm born and raised here, so I remember when all this happened. Some of you are, some of you aren't. But in other business, the Lake County School Board approved a boundary change for students attending Claremont Elementary and Mineola Elementary. For about a decade, the students would attend Claremont from kindergarten to 4th grade, but then they'd be transferred to Mineola Elementary for 1 year for their 5th grade. Then they'd return to Claremont for middle school. So they had the same issues 30 years ago that we're going through now, and we have to make the hard decisions, and I'm sorry for those that aren't going to like what we do. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
3-2. Motion carries for approval of option 8. Dr. Moxley.
Board members, there's a couple of things that I wanted to just kind of respond to. Later in our discussion agenda, you're going to be talking about some policies dealing with student assignment, and that gets into those zone waivers that were briefly brought up, and you have tweaked that policy to give some teeth to it. One of the things, once that policy comes back, it's up for tentative approval tonight. Once that comes back for final approval, we actually, and I think there was a parent in here tonight that talked about being an auditor, and, you know, it's not too hard to run reports and those kinds of things. I will tell you, we can run reports and the geocoding and all of that, but if people do not have accurate driver's license, or if they lease apartments and share apartments and bring a lease with their name on it and it's notarized, the staff has no way of determining whether that's not a legally. So the only way I know to get at that, because we're having people make comments where, several families have gone together and they've leased an apartment complex or an apartment, and they're using that same address with a lease and coming in and doing all those things. Well, we're in the policy saying you can show your driver's license or your voter's registration and 2 of any of the following. That will help tighten that up a little bit. But again, if somebody is going to falsify or go to the extent of not changing their driver's license or go and lease a building or an apartment and never live there, the only way we can confirm that is to go and physically see, are they living there every night, or the child living there? Now, in order to do that, again, don't have the administrative staff at the school or at the district to go verify that every night. But I do believe that there is some basis enough, it's been discussed enough, that we need to do an independent audit of the attendance addresses and that type of thing, and do do an audit of all the addresses and ask for documentation. If that's been pulled at random, that's what an audit does, is it has a configuration and it pulls records at random, and you go and verify and ask for the supporting documentation to verify. That's the only way I know to get to that, and have an auditor do that. Mm-hmm. So I would strongly recommend that I will be looking to bring something to you to have an auditor go and do that and start finding out who's giving false addresses and who isn't, and get to the bottom of that. There was a teacher that spoke today about FTE. He had the process pretty close, but yes, we do 6 times at the beginning of the year do what we call the warm body counts, as he referred to it. We call it students that are physically present and occupying a seat. We do that the first day of the school year. We do it at the 5-day mark. We do it at the 10-day mark. We do it at the 20-day mark. We do it right after Labor Day, and then we do it at FTE. FTE is when you get funded. Unfortunately, we staff the schools each spring based on annualized FTE. That's the October and the February FTE. February counts are usually less because students have moved out for whatever reason. And you have that mobility rate in there. This year, we are actually looking at 3 data points. We're looking at the annualized FTE. We're looking at the projected growth. And again, those are projections that we don't know until the students actually physically come. And remember, we don't get funded unless they physically show up. But to help minimize what the teacher portrayed, which is an accurate portrayal of that. And that's not just Lake Minneola, that's all schools. But when you're in a high growth school like Lake Minneola, it is heightened. With that to help with that. But again, projections are just that. They're projections until you verify and validate that there is actually a student that shows up at the doorstep. So,
okay. Any other comments on any of the comments? Okay. Okay, agenda item 11.02 is final approval of the 2014-15 Lake County School Board Student Progression Plan. I do have a comment before I formally make this recommendation. What makes this one a little more confusing and problematic is the fact that we now have a legislative, it is a wonderful problem to have, I will say. Because we had legislative action that just took place and a governor that signed the bill in a very expeditious manner, looking out for what's right for students, and I appreciate them doing that, and the bill becomes law upon signature, which is usually not the normal. It's usually a July 1st start date, but because of that, it gives districts the latitude to look at district administered end of course exams. As you know, when we did the tentative read on this, we modified that and had an attachment with regarding end of course exams, and because we narrowed that down. Well, now we have the governor's signed bill that says we have the option of not administering any district administered end of course exams and only required to do the state required with that. Well, in this particular policy that is here for final approval, it does reference the addendum that we had done before, but it does not reference the newly signed bill. So this is up for final approval. So I did speak with Mr. Johnson, and he can tell me whether my understanding of our conversation is accurate, that if we were to go back and amend this, we would have to go back for tentative approval, do the tentative approval, advertise for 28 days, and come back. This would now be at graduation time. There are also graduation criteria and things that we've been operating on that we need to have this approved and finalized tonight to solidify those things. So it's problematic if we were to amend it to now represent the new change in the law, but it's also, which starts a cycle again, but it's also problematic if we don't move forward to it from the other parts that are included, because this is a massive document. So what I asked Mr. Johnson, if this is feasible, if we move forward and give final approval to this, can I bring back at the May 11th meeting a request to waive the policy, student progression policy, because it is my intention to exercise the flexibility that has been given by that signed bill of only administering state mandated and to relieve the district of any other district administered end of course exams, in the other grade levels that were not done in that other work. And what Mr. Johnson advised me is that I could bring on May 11th a request to waive that portion of the student progression plan to do that. So with that, and with that understanding, the reason it is my intention to, in fact, I've already sent a recommendation to the team committee of not administering any district administered end of course exams, but that means they have to meet and decide how they're going to handle that from the evaluation standpoint based on the guidelines of that law. They are meeting Friday morning, so we will have a decision by Monday or Friday afternoon, Monday morning at the latest, and then with the action on the 11th, we'll be able to halt this administration.
with that. So,
can we amen?
With that understanding, I am recommending final approval of the 2014-15 Lake County School Board Student Progression Plan.
Okay, you've heard the I know it's a public hearing. Is he going to talk this time?
Yes, the matter before the board is final approval of the 2014-2015 Lake County School Board Student Progression Plan. If there's anyone here this evening that wishes to speak to this particular item, please come forward to the podium at this time.
Would you give us your name, please?
Vincent Montori, teacher, Lake Mineola High School. First off, man, I know that was a tough decision, guys. Really tough. Thank you, Dr. Moxley. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Walk faster, Stuart.
I better do that.
I too went to.
No, you don't time them on the.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Stand by. I'm not timing you.
I went to reinforce what Vince just said. Thank you. I think the legislature looking at ending the non-required state-mandated end-of-course exams, I think is a step in the right direction, and we've talked about that all year. So I think this will be a good step for our teachers. Thank you.
Before we take a vote, I want to thank, because I'll end up forgetting after the vote, thank all the parents and the educators that have been going to Tallahassee. They made the difference. Like we've said many times, we're politicians. That's what we're considered. They know where we're coming from. But when the parents and the teachers and the administrators go up there, they do listen to you. It's obvious from all the changes that got made this year. So thank you, all of you out there in the listening audience. Okay, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Third. You have a first, second, third. You want a fourth?
Fourth.
Fourth. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moxley.
Okay, 11.03 and 04 will come at a later date. 11.05 is tentative approval of policy 4.20 allocations of instructional materials. This was workshop last week, so this is coming for tentative approval. So at this time, I'd like to recommend tentative approval of policy 4.20 allocations of instructional materials as presented.
Mr. Johnson?
The item before the board is Board Policy 4.20, allocation of instructional materials. If there's anyone that wishes to speak to this particular item, please come forward to the podium. No one coming forward. Madam Chairman, I believe it appropriate to close the public hearing.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
11.07 is tentative approval of management of textbooks. This one was workshopped last Monday, so at this time I'd like to recommend tentative approval of policy 4.23, management of textbooks as presented.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, the item before the board is tentative approval of policy 4.23, management of textbooks. If there's anyone here this evening that wishes to speak to this policy, please come forward to the podium at this time. I don't see anyone coming forward, Madam Chairman. I believe it appropriate to close the public hearing.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there
So moved.
or second? Ms. Luke? All in favor?
Aye.
Dr. Moxley?
Okay, the next one, 11.08, is tentative approval of policy 4.30, challenge materials. This was workshop last Monday, so I recommend tentative approval of policy 4.30, challenge materials as presented.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, the item before the board is tentative approval of school board policy 4.30, challenge materials. If there's anyone here this evening that wishes to speak to this policy, please come forward to the podium at this time. No one coming forward, Madam Chairman. I believe it appropriate to close the public hearing, and I would note that you should have gotten a revised one from the one that was originally posted on board docs that deleted, so there's the last three paragraph numbers, so there should only be paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and paragraph 3 in the final version that was provided to you.
Thank you for that notation. You've heard the superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
11.09 deals with student assignment. This is the policy I briefly referenced earlier. There were significant changes to this. We workshopped this last Monday. Board members, there was discussion. We made sure that in each of the sections where it talks about the district shall require the parent or guardian or custodian to present evidence, a Florida driver's license with current physical address, or a Florida voter's registration card, and any two of the following residency items, and those items are listed there. That mirrors what is in the student progression plan as well. So those changes were made to make sure that those were all aligned, and I think this policy takes in everything that was discussed, so I would like to recommend tentative approval of the revisions to policy 5.20, student assignment.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes, the matter before the board is initial tentative approval of board policy 5.20, student assignment. Is there anyone here this evening that wishes to speak to this particular policy? Please come forward at this time.
Mr. Tibbetts.
I'm concerned of one thing in terms of this assignment, and that is verifying a homeless person's address and where they live. By definition, we call them homeless, and from what I think was reported last year, we have between 500 and 800 homeless students in the district.
We have more than that.
I don't know how you assign someone who is homeless with all of these checkoff points. Do I put down my car? Do I put down a tent in the woods? Do I put down an underpass? It's a difficult situation, but I don't think it can be just dealt with in terms of checkoffs. There needs to be a program that ascertains where these people are, how we can best serve them, instead of worrying about where their particular addresses are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, we do that through student services, and there is some language in the student progression plan about that. But we do have, under the leadership of Jan Tobias, the McKinney-Vento Act is very specific about that. In fact, in some of the address verifications, that is a lot how we do verify that we do have many homeless children, and some people don't really want to declare that right up front, but in working with parents, we are able to get them the services that are needed. So we appreciate the agencies that work with us on that. So good point presented, and I want to assure you that Jan Tobias has staff that are assigned for that task.
Okay. You've heard the superintendent's recommendation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this going to start effective for the fall? And well, this is the pupil progression plan for this year, I realize, and then this language is in there. But as far as verification of addresses, is that something that everybody's going to do initially in the start of the fall so that it can maybe help starting to identify some of the issues that we're having in the South End?
The policy becomes effective upon the approval of the final approval. So once this is advertised, the 28 days, so this would this will come back the first board meeting in June, because you don't have one at the end of the month in May. So it will take place for the start of the school year. Now we are in the great question, because we're in the process of sending student assignment letters. So, for example, we send student assignment letters based on where their address is in the Harry Fix. Their office is doing this right now, where we're sending to the rising 6th graders, so current 5th graders, the rising 9th graders, current 8th graders, based on their geocoded address. This is the school you're assigned to attend.
Correct. And in the past, what we would do is, if that wasn't, I think we spoke a little bit about this, if the parent then indicated, we gave a place at the bottom of that said, if this is not your address, put it in your correct address. Well, now if they write on there and they change their address, the instructions are going to be that they're going to have to bring that in with the verification that you all talk about. Okay. I just realized that means our letters are going to have to be sent out a little later because of the vote.
Right.
Right. For it to be policy.
And I'm just going to clarify. So we said rising 6th graders, rising 9th graders. Are we going to do any revision at Lake Mineola for next year? According to the policy for not just incoming 9th graders, for 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th.
Yes.
Okay.
What we need to, now that's a different question than just a policy question, because at Lake Mineola, what they have been doing is when they reissue their iPads, they're having to show driver's license. Well, this will require them to show more. That's how we've been doing some of those address verifications. But I need to say it's not going to identify people that are not forthright, or it's not going to identify people that have elected to lease an apartment but don't actually live there.
And I agree with you. I just want to make sure we're doing our due diligence.
Yes. Now, the other thing is that if I ask and bring forth to ask for auditor
sunshine,
they cannot talk between themselves on various topics that would come before the committee.
So maybe the superintendent committee would be a better committee. Yeah. Sure. You know, just something to entertain. I think we could use. And
always give her suggestions.
Right? Okay. And the only other thing I had written down was I have actually had the pleasure of working with Margie White, who is our volunteer. She works at my daughter's schools, and my children have published books with her, and she is just such a blessing to that school. So I just wanted to extend congratulations. And then Mrs. Lopez worked the district office with me, and she was also just a breath of fresh air. So we have such amazing employees here. And that's all.
Thank you. Mark?
You all might recall a little while ago, I guess maybe a month or two ago, we were presented with some wonderful guests. I think Benjamin Franklin and Abraham Lincoln might have been in the crowd, the students and teachers over at Pine Ridge. I'll tell you, they've taken problem-based learning to the next level. The same group has I think, is far exceeding expectations. Now they're really putting this in a true sense of real-world problems. They've been looking at student safety, as a lot of their students would like the chance to walk to school, but because of the lack of sidewalks and because of the lack of crossing guards and because of the number of cars who don't necessarily follow the posted school zones or the lack of traffic lights, they have partnered with or gotten the Metropolitan Planning Organization involved. And I went to their school last week when Michael Woods from the MPO was there, and he shared a lot of the background with these students of how the conditions have come to be the way they are. And boy, the questions that they asked were just so well composed, and these kids are ready to take over the MPO now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it was incredibly awesome. And these kids are going to make their presentations to a couple of the county commissioners later this month. In the month of May. So it's really exciting. So a huge shout out to them and Mrs. Kryling over there for really taking this next level. It's incredible to see. I have one other item to share, and that is the next round of coffee and conversations will be held on Friday, May the 1st. Commissioner Sean Parks and I are partnering together to go out and meet constituents at a location typically in Claremont first Friday of the month. So from 8 to 10 a.m. you can join us at Cheeser's Palace. And we'll also have a special guest, James Argento from the State Attorney's Office will be there.
Yep. The Top Scholars Luncheon was so uplifting, and I just would like to thank the Educational Foundation for putting that on. We had 82 seniors who are graduating. We have 2 students who have been accepted to the Air Force Academy. Mm-hmm. And all of the students, as the superintendent had mentioned earlier, are going into some very interesting majors. And just want to wish all of our seniors all of the best, because they have received a great education here in the Lake County school system. Last week I went to the Leesburg Chamber of Commerce breakfast, and each month they invite one of the Leesburg schools to come and perform. This time it was the chorus at Leesburg Elementary who performed for the breakfast, and they were wonderful. And then we had a group of teachers who performed, and they did water aerobics. They were so creative. Of course, there was not a pool there, but you would not have known that they were not swimming in a pool, but they were very creative.
From Leesburg Elementary.
And they were from Leesburg Elementary. So if you want to see the swimming aquatic teachers, they were quite enjoyable. And then the Night of Stars, being able to honor all of the volunteers in Lake County Schools. We could not do what we do without our volunteers. So thank all of them, and to our school-related employees of the year. And just would like to say thank you to Melissa for all she does at Treadway Elementary and for being with us tonight. So thank you.
Bill.
First of all, welcome, Ken. And every one of these meetings are just like this. So run. Real quick, I had an opportunity. Mrs. Chateauneuf invited me to Groveland's A and AB honor roll, mainly because our own regional scholar, Kayleen Peraza, did not have an opportunity to be here. So I had the opportunity to present her certificate and also shake the hand of some 85 eighth graders that made the A and AB honor roll. And I think that's when we're at our best, and showing, I enjoyed that a lot more than tonight, I'll just say that. And that's all I have.
I want to thank the board for moving forward last week without me, and thank you for the prayers. And
I was amazing, by the way.
And you were amazing. Okay, I haven't seen it, so I can't say that you were amazing, but I will watch it to see that you were amazing. But if you would keep my niece in your prayers for the next year, we definitely could use it. So I missed all those events that I planned on going to, and I'm glad you all went. I did see the softball game prior to the championship one, though. And it was good, where Tavares lost. I'm sorry. And I've been working on many things with staff, and I'll be bringing back a report on those kind of things. And I will be working closely with the two gentlemen right there. And we have some things going on to bring back to you on land acquisitions and land projects that are going on. So I think that's it. Mr. Johnson, do you have anything? I know. Dr. Moxley?
I'm good.
You'll be back in a week. You're on vacation for a week. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Mr. Johnson's gone. Call Mark. Okay. This meeting's adjourned.